Happy Thursday, everyone. What's going on? And welcome to another edition of Greg Balls of Fire for, what month are we in? November 2nd, 2023. Today, the plan was to come up here and primarily predict and talk about WWE Crown Jewel, which comes to us live this Saturday from Saudi Arabia. And we're going to predict and talk about that entire card. We were also going to recap last night's Dynamite. That's still in the plans, but we have a lot of other wrestling news to get into as well, including some big news on Ric Flair that was just announced about an hour or two ago from AEW. He has signed a long-term agreement with the company, and this has resulted in a pretty fair amount of backlash just in the last couple of hours. So that's big news coming out of AEW today, along with last night's Dynamite, which was kind of a mediocre Dynamite, but there were a couple of things on the show that I really liked. But the big thing I want to talk about is Tony Khan's major announcement or important announcement, yet another one of these, I don't know, ratings ploys or whatever they are. You know, he's got about a 50-50 success rate with these. Some of them are actually big announcements, and other ones are things that he could have just announced in a tweet. And last night was one of them. So we're going to give Tony Khan a little bit of shit for his announcement last night on AEW. I don't mind them promoting that Tony Khan's got an announcement, you know, in general. But the fact that they made like a match graphic for this thing and they, you know, sold Dynamite on this was a little bit weak in my opinion. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Ric Flair. We're going to talk about some news on Kairi Sane, CM Punk, Big E, Eric of the Viking Raiders. We're also going to touch on the Vladimir Superfan doc, which did get released finally on Peacock and the WWE Network this past weekend. And like I said, we will recap last night's Dynamite. I don't want to go through the whole show because I felt like the show was kind of a mediocre edition of Dynamite, but I do want to talk about a couple of things that we saw on that show, and we will look at what the full gear card looks like as of now. About 7 matches so far we've got penciled in for that thing, so we will preview that. And then we will predict the entire Crown Jewel card, which now consists of 8 total matches, including one that they added this week on the kickoff, Sami Zayn versus JD McDonough. I think that's kind of a cool match to put on the kickoff because you know Sami's going to win that. You know he's going to come out there to a very nice, warm welcome, probably speak to the fans in Arabic, and he did that at the last one. That should be fun. They added that, and we'll predict the rest of the card, which I have to say looks pretty good. I mean, when you think about to the first Crown Jewels, the first Saudi shows they started 5 years ago, how they were phoning these shows in. They're taking them seriously now, treating them like actual pay-per-views, and this is quite the card that we have lined up for Saturday. So we're going to predict that here at the end of the show as well. We're probably looking at about a 90-minute long podcast here because I've got to get out of here and head to work tonight. But the plan is to be here after Crown Jewel on Saturday. I currently have the Crown Jewel review on Saturday scheduled for the same time we're going live right now, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. That's when I'm going to come up here, unless I am here a little bit early. It's possible. So I might be up here like a half an hour early, maybe even an hour early on Saturday. So just stay tuned. But I wanted to give myself enough time after the show to get my notes together and regroup in case I'm not up early enough, like 9 a.m., to get started on watching Crown Jewel. So that's the plan for the rest of the week. Unfortunately, there is no classic pay-per-view watch-along planned for this Sunday either. I have a family dinner that I have to attend, so I'm not going to be home on Sunday night to do the watch-along, but we will pick that up next week with a Survivor Series watch-along as well. So that's kind of what you're going to get from me this week. Let me say hello to the chat real quick, and then we will get into the big Ric Flair news that was announced just a little while ago. But I want to welcome and thank and say hello to Bonkers LFC and Red Raven Rucker. We got Zane G, channel member. We got How Wheezy, year and 2 months now with us as a member. Hey, Greg, if maybe Heyman turns on Roman, might be possible. Maybe. I mean, he's done it before. He's turned on other people in the past. He's turned on everybody, basically, that he's managed in the past. So I could see them factoring that in, but man, that would be quite the swerve, especially, you know, Heyman would have to give the performance of a lifetime. The fact that his hair is turning gray when Roman is not on the show, and the fact that, you know, he grovels and cries and, you know, acts like a complete bitch every time he's around Roman Reigns, that would be quite the turnaround for him to turn on him, especially since we haven't seen too many instances of Roman kind of like abusing him or anything like that. You know, if Heyman started getting sick of him or whatever, maybe he would want to go in another direction. But since Heyman has turned before, I wouldn't rule anything out. Not sure if that's something we will see at Crown Jewel, though. Good to see, my boys, FRGN, good to see you. Amato is here as well. Good to see you, my friend. Hey, Greg, got my headphone in under my beanie so nobody will notice. Working 10s all week. Today has been one of the worst days since I left my cats. Just need to hang out and feel better. So sorry to hear that, Amato. Amato's a good friend of mine. Show him some love there in the chat, and hang in there on your long day today. I've got one ahead of me as well, working a crazy one this week. Working a crazy month, actually. So best of luck to you, and hopefully you are able to keep us concealed under your beanie. Stone Cold 10X is in the house as well, and thank you for that $2. Hey, Greg, happy to be here for a live show. I'm happy you are here as well. Deshaun Robinson's in the house, Toro Hill, MH Nova, Ben Espinoza, and Luke McAllister chiming in with 5. Hey, Greg, hopefully I'll be going to All In for the second year running. Already booked my hotel in London, just waiting on them tickets. Yeah, and it looks like you're going to get a shot to get those tickets quicker than you think. November 1st, I think 1 month from now, is going to be the date on that. So we will talk about Tony Khan's big, or actually he never used the word big. Actually, he never used the words big or huge. He said important. So I guess maybe in the future we should pay attention to that. It was because they weren't lying about that. Tony Khan's announcement was important, but that important announcement could have just been announced in a tweet, in an email, any other time. It could have been mentioned in passing by the announcers, and they could have just thrown up an all-in graphic. That's all they needed to do. But to promote this thing, like Tony Khan's going to give the fans of AEW worldwide some big information. We were all hoping for, a max deal or a streaming deal, but I have a feeling whenever a deal like that is finally reached, we're going to know about it before Tony Khan says something on TV. I think that would be a press release type of thing. From Warner Brothers Discovery. If this deal is made on a Friday, they're just going to announce it, and then they're not going to be able to talk about it until Wednesday, I guess Saturday on Collision. So I think that if a streaming deal is ever made, that's not something that we're going to hear about from Tony Khan on Dynamite or Collision. I think that's something we're going to hear about in some sort of a press release or whatever. That's my guess whenever that happens. So I didn't really think that his announcement was going to be a streaming deal, but since a lot of fans are really waiting for that, and really hoping that it happens soon, especially, for tape library purposes and pay-per-view purposes and things like that. It's really going to help out fans a lot if they have a streaming platform to consume AEW content on. So the fact that that hasn't happened yet is starting to get the fans a little bit frustrated. Come on already with this shit. But I'm sure once they get their new deal and a streaming deal and all of that announced, it will happen. But it probably will not happen until next year in 2024. But it's going to be an interesting one. And Luke, I'm happy that you're going to All In again. I wish I could make the trip from London. It is a long way away from California. Maybe one of these years I will get out to All In, but it's going to be tough for me to make it. If I can get out there, we'll share a pint. Isn't that what you guys call it out there? Pints, right? So anywho, but glad you guys are here. Thank you for being here on this Thursday afternoon. Apparently there's been some algorithm problems in YouTube. People aren't getting notified about videos being up. I've seen a lot of content creators complaining about that. So not sure what kind of an audience we're going to have today. Pretty low one so far, but if you don't mind, please smash that thumbs up button. And if you're not a subscriber, would love your subscription. We are less than 200 subscribers away from 40,000 here on the channel. So that's very exciting. We will get there pretty soon, but we need engagement. We need likes. We need comments in the chat. We need comments below once this video goes on demand, and we need likes and subscriptions. So please help us out. And if you really want to support, you can become a member. Link info is in the description below. Let's talk about wrestling news. Let's get into wrestling news first. A few tidbits I want to run through. Then we will just kind of briefly recap Dynamite, talk about some of the key points that we saw last night, and then we will predict WWE Crown Jewel. But let's start with the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. As we saw last week, Tony Khan had a gift for Sting. He was going to present Sting with a gift. That gift turned out to be the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. And he came out, said some words on the mic, reunited with Sting, and says that he wants to ride the wagon with Sting into retirement. And I personally did not care to see Ric Flair. I was tolerating it, as I said in the podcast last week, because it's Sting. This is Sting's retirement. And if this is something that maybe he wants, or he wants Flair to be a part of, or whatever, who am I to say? I'm more concerned with Sting having a retirement that he's happy and satisfied with after all of the years he's given us than me worrying about, my favorites and who I like and I don't like and shit. So I said last week, provided that Ric Flair is just there to come in, be a part of the Sting stuff, and make a few appearances, I mean, I really don't really have an issue with it. It's just a little bit weird to see him there when you see Tony Khan, taking all these moral high grounds and this grandstanding on people like Hulk Hogan, who I cannot stand either, and I don't want him in AEW, but I mean, is Ric Flair really better than Hulk Hogan? To me, they're kind of in the same category. It's just a couple of washed up, crusty dudes that have completely embarrassed themselves in the retirement, and a lot of the past behavior now coming to light, in the Dark Side of the Ring documentary, all these things that we really down deep knew about Ric Flair. But to hear these stories told publicly now and people coming out about various, instances of, sexual harassment or whatever from Ric Flair, what makes his situation more attractive than Hulk's? To me, they're both PR nightmares. To me, if I'm Tony Khan, I wouldn't want either one of them. But the fact that Tony Khan took such an aggressive stance against Hogan, you are never welcome in AEW. Security will send you away if you come into one of our shows. To take that stance against Hulk Hogan, which I agree with his stance on, I would feel the same way. But to not have the same stance with Flair, I just don't want to hear any more of Tony Khan's shit if this is the way he's going to be. If he's going to be this inconsistent about it, then I don't want any more grandstanding from him, because it's clearly not about that. And when you look at Ric Flair and his legacy, it's a big one. But I mean, at this stage, highlighting him and giving him a platform, I don't know how I feel about that. Now, Ric Flair's signing with AEW is interesting, because I want to bring this up. Now, I want to read you a little bit of AEW's statement here on Ric Flair that they posted 3 hours ago now on their website. And a couple of paragraphs in there I want to read to you. And this one is about the third paragraph down from AEW's statement on Ric Flair signing a multi-year deal with the company. And this one's important. Tony Khan also announced that Ric Flair's Woo Energy will become the exclusive energy drink of AEW. During AEW show dates, select host venues will carry the clean energy drink at concession stands for fans to enjoy. In addition, the beverage will be stocked in the wrestlers' locker rooms and will also be seen on the announcers' desks during live broadcasts. Fans watching at home can experience Woo Energy by ordering via wooenergy.com, which means you have to have the right amount of O's in there. It looks like they've got Woo as in 6 O's, energy.com. That's where you have to go if you want to order that. So, product promotion here, that's nothing new. WWE does that shit all the time. They just had a Mountain Dew match at the Royal Rumble this year. Rest in peace, Bray Wyatt. So that is nothing odd. But what is cool is that Fightful Select also had a report on this that they released just about an hour ago. And I want to read you not all of it, but a portion of it. Here's what Fightful Select had to say when they asked about Flair's deal. The press release provided by AEW mentioned Flair's energy drink. Sources close to Flair told Fightful that the deal was very similar to that of Randy Savage in WCW in the mid-90s, where part of getting Flair was also procuring the deal with the energy drink that would cover a significant portion, if not all, of Ric Flair's salary in All Elite Wrestling. In the 90s, Randy Savage left WWE for WCW and took the lucrative sponsorship deal with Slim Jim with him. Eric Bischoff had noted in the past that as part of landing the Slim Jim deal, it paid a significant portion of Randy Savage's salary within the company at the time. When asking AEW sources about the motivations of having Flair on the roster, beyond what you see on the surface, merchandising was cited as a big possibility. Between video games, action figures, and general merchandise, those are seen as big openings for the usage of Flair if those are a part of the deal. So, that makes his signing, I wouldn't say easier to swallow, because I don't want to see Ric Flair at all. But at least this is kind of understandable. Now, I've seen a lot. The biggest complaints I've seen on AEW today is how, they lack, they would rather showcase these guys than maybe pushing or highlighting other young talent, which I think they do enough of that. But bringing in, I don't think AEW lacks from giving exposure or matches to young talent. They do that a ton. But they do have issues with the women. And the women's booking has really, really struggled. And to me, that would be more of a priority to me if I'm Tony Khan than maybe signing Ric Flair. If I got Tony Khan, or if I got Ric Flair in the door to be a part of Sting's retirement, then I would be happy with that. As a promoter, okay, he's here, he can come and do his thing and then leave. And I would, focus my energy on more important issues. But when you think about the energy drink, and the fact that this is going to be, a sponsorship deal type of thing, I'm like, well, okay, I can understand that. Even though fans find Ric Flair disgusting, most of the general public finds Ric Flair disgusting. It's not like he's been totally canceled. He's still being invited to podcasts, doing interviews. He still does appearances. He's got an endorsement deal with an energy drink company. He's, in car commercials, lottery commercials, Ric Flair rap videos and shit. So it's not like society has completely just shut out Ric Flair. That's not really happened. He still, for some reason, can be an asset advertising wise to certain entities, certain companies, whatever. So I'm trying to look at this as logically as possible, even though I think Flair being in the company is fucking disgusting. Looking at it from Tony Khan's perspective, we all know that Tony Khan is a mark who became a wrestling promoter. A lot of fans think that's bad. I don't. It's who I've always wanted to be, a wrestling promoter, a mark with a whole bunch of money. Tony Khan has issues with telling stories. He has issues with his booking here and there, but overall, we've seen way, 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 way worse than Tony Khan, issues aside. So from Tony Khan's standpoint, if you're looking at it from his point of view, he is a lifelong wrestling fan, grew up watching and loving wrestling, and a big fan of a lot of the people he's brought in, including Ric Flair. Now, Flair was set to come in back in 2020, but then the Plane Ride from Hell, Dark Side of the Ring aired, and they decided not to go through with that. It's been 3 years, and they brought him back in. Is this any different or worse than WWE waiting that time period after they distanced themselves from Hulk Hogan? Did they even take him out of the Hall of Fame? I can't remember if they did that or not. I don't think they did. But they went through a lot of work there to distance themselves from Hulk Hogan and from Hulkamania because of that horrible video that was released, or that audio. And that audio, I should say. And then a few years later, shit just blows over, and there you go. He's the first one being brought onto the stage at WrestleMania 36 alongside Titus O'Neil, big giant black guy. It's just so fucking pathetic. It was stupid. Fans didn't give a shit. Nobody wants anything to do with Hulk Hogan in the WWE anymore. So what AEW is doing here isn't anything different than WWE has done in the past. And I think even WWE has had Ric Flair on television since that shit aired, right? So it's not like he's been completely canceled. But that doesn't mean that it's a good idea to really put him on your show. But if Tony Khan is having a big portion of Flair's salary covered by the energy drink, plus it allows them to do some cross promotion with that, and it gets Ric Flair in the company to be a part of Sting's retirement, and most likely AEW will be the final resting place of Sting and Ric Flair's career. This will probably be the last wrestling contracts they would have, you would think. I mean, Flair, even if he survives this 3 years, is he going to go to WWE and sign another 3-year deal with them? No. He probably will make another appearance in WWE, I have no doubt. As long as he's alive, as long as he doesn't die while he's under contract to AEW, I firmly believe he will be somewhere doing something in WWE, maybe when Charlotte breaks his record or something like that. Speaking of records, I'm wondering if they want to have John Cena hurry up and break that record now that Flair is gone. Do you think they're going to take his woo out of the WWE signature opening? They probably will, right? So I don't know. But like when you look at it from that standpoint, try to remove and put out of your mind all the disgusting shit about Ric Flair. I know it's hard to do that, but just try for a second. And then when you think about it, I'm like, okay, AEW came around so late. They're only 4 years old. The fact that they were able to have a little bit of contact with some of these older legends, and Ric Flair and Sting, two of the biggest names to ever come out of the NWA and WCW, that also aired on TBS and TNT. The fact that Flair and Sting could both completely end their wrestling careers. Flair's still iffy. Sting, I think the last thing he'll ever do wrestling related will be in AEW. Flair, though, I feel like as long as he can walk and speak and dress himself and not shit his pants, he's going to go wherever he can get money until the day he dies. But he's old. And if he signed a multi-year deal, he's going to be even older when this deal is up. So if Tony Khan gets to have AEW be the final pro wrestling jobs that Ric Flair and Sting ever have, that ties their legacies forever to AEW. And it's minor, it's a little thing, but I mean, still, if I'm Tony Khan and I'm trying to build my company, and I'm thinking of 20 years down the line when I can, show video packages and highlight clips of things that we've done throughout our history. I get to have Sting, now deceased, Ric Flair, now deceased, and all of these other legends, Adam Copeland, get to come in and have a final little last ride in AEW. At least it gives them something to tie themselves to the legacies of the biggest names in the business. They brought Bret Hart in for a cup of coffee. A lot of people have come through there. Rob Van Dam is in there working matches right now. They brought in Sabu and some ECW guys. Bischoff's even made an appearance for AEW. So having people like this come in, work small contracts or a couple of appearances here and there, I really don't mind. And I also don't blame, Tony Khan for being attracted to the idea of having a Ric Flair influence in the company. But when you see what, the reputation Ric Flair has earned for himself over the past few years, it wouldn't be worth it to me. If I'm Tony Khan, I'm not bringing him in. I might have him come in and make an appearance in a Sting retirement send-off to give him a hug. At Ric Flair's retirement back in 2008, they had Arn Anderson and Tully and Harley and Greg Valentine. A whole bunch of people were in the ring, randos, in the ring, showing Flair some love, people who've had history with Ric Flair before. So I would not be opposed at all if Tony Khan used Flair in that regard. And 2 months from now, when Sting gets close to his retirement, you bring Flair out on TV to give him a hug, wish him luck or whatever, or you bring Ric Flair out during Sting's send-off. Something like that would be much, much easier, to swallow for a wrestling fan like me who honestly does not need Ric Flair on TV on a regular basis. So if they just brought him in for a minute to be a part of the Sting thing, okay, it's for Sting. It's not about Flair. It's about Sting. Now it makes it about Flair. Now Ric Flair is coming in. He is 126 years old, and he signed a multi-year deal with AEW that is going to give them a cross-promotion with his energy drink and all of that. But really, what is he going to bring other than just be somebody that can, maybe make announcements here? What the hell is he going to do? I don't want Ric Flair at ringside trying to manage anybody, certainly not getting there and throwing chops and doing his dancing and his woos and dropping an elbow on an empty ring mat. I do not need any of that shit in AEW. It was way too late in TNA back in 2010, 13 years ago when he tried this shit. It's even later now. He's already had his last match that was promoted and built, and he fell asleep on the fucking apron and was coughing up blood, looked like a mess. Now you want to bring him in and do anything like this again? So Flair in AEW, he's there. He's going to be there for a while. But in terms of what he does, I just don't think you can do anything significant with him storyline-wise, unless you want to use him as a way to get, somebody else over, if a brash, cocky heel. MJF would be a perfect candidate for this if he was still a heel, to come out and get in his face and have a little promo battle with him or whatever, just to get a Ric Flair rub. Maybe it's just, I think with the sponsorship thing, that makes it, kind of a little easier in the sense that Tony Khan's not signing Ric Flair to a multi-year deal. At least there's something that goes with it. It's not just signing Flair, giving him money, giving him a big contract or something like that. There is some other motivations here with the energy drink and whatnot. So it's gross. I don't like it. I think AEW does deserve any criticism they hear today. And maybe if the criticism is loud enough, maybe they back out of the deal. We've seen that happen before. So we'll see how loud the fans are going to be about this. But one thing I have noticed today on social media, even from the AEW hardcores, even from the people who are most prone to defend them at all costs, even they're saying, fuck Ric Flair. So that's nice that we can all come together just to say, fuck you, Ric Flair. I don't have those terrible feelings, or any horrible feelings towards AEW, but I also don't just blindly support them and defend them either. So when you see people who do have that kind of support for them, even they're like, okay, this might be too much. Then AEW might have a problem on their hands. I've seen the rumor that perhaps Jack Perry could be the man under the devil mask. I don't recommend that. If I'm AEW, I kind of think it would be cool for him to be under the mask because I'm like, oh, what a little prick. But I feel like that would be a turnoff to some fans. It wouldn't be a turnoff to me because I like shit like that. I like fans getting mad and stuff. But I think that the backlash would be so bad. It would be the wrong message to send especially since a lot of people do blame Jack Perry for CM Punk's actions. That's the way a lot of people feel, and their minds can't really be changed about that, even though they're dead fucking doornail wrong. But just let them be wrong. Who cares? They're not going to like that. I think it's going to put unnecessary heat on AEW, and it's going to be go away. It's not going to be the right kind of heat either. If Jack Perry is revealed to be the devil, that I don't think a whole bunch of people are going to tune in to see what he wants to do. I think a lot of people are going to change the channel because they fucking hate the prick. So if I'm AEW, I would think about things like that. And I worry sometimes that, they make decisions that might get them backlash from their most staunch and hardcore supporters, and that's not good. So I am against Ric Flair coming into AEW, but I can't change him being there. He's there. And provided that they don't go overboard with him and he doesn't do too much. Like if he appears on camera every couple of weeks or he stumbles his fucking wrinkly ass out to the ring once a month, I don't care. But if this guy's going to be involved in weekly TV, the only potential upside it might have is to the, and again, you have to separate Ric Flair's reputation from this. And I know it's hard to do that. But the only upside in my mind might be that you have a lot of young, stupidly young wrestlers in AEW. People who were kids or who were born 10 years after Ric Flair retired, basically type of thing. Maybe not that long, but they weren't even barely alive when Ric Flair was still active. I guess back 20 years ago, he was still kind of active. He was winning the Intercontinental title in WWE and stuff. But for the most part, Ric Flair's glory days have been 30 years behind us. So the fact that you can have a lot of that young talent talk to him, shake his hand, just have an experience with him or something like that, maybe even get some sort of a rub or interview time with him on TV where they approach him in a backstage interview with Renee and they just get that, moment. Nick Wayne would be a good guy to do this with. I would put Nick Wayne, and he already has been. He's already been out there with Ric Flair, but Nick Wayne now at 19 years old, decades after Ric Flair is long dead and gone, this kid's going to have these moments to remember, hey, I got to share a ring with Sting and Ric Flair. He's going to be one of the last people to do that. And that's kind of cool. So I think from that sense, hardcore wrestling fans who are wrestling fans first and everything else comes second, there might be some members of the AEW roster that are happy to have Ric Flair because it's their first chance to meet him. I've had several opportunities to meet Ric Flair, and I never have because I just refused to pay to meet him. I met him one time without paying when I was a kid, but being able to, get an autograph and a picture with him, I'm not giving that dude a dime of my money, not a dime. So interesting decision made by AEW to bring in Ric Flair long-term, which probably was going to be their initial intent anyway. When AEW formed, I thought for sure Ric Flair would be there. Arn was there. Tully was there. I thought, did they bring JJ in for a spell? Or not a spell, but did he make an appearance there? He might have too. But I thought for sure he'd be in there anyway. So now backlash and all the stuff from the dark side of the ring. It's been 3 years. Now they're trying again. Interesting decision to say the least. Speaking of decisions, we should talk about the big announcement from Tony Khan last night. Before I do that, let me say hello to some more friends like Rodrigo Martinez. Thank you for the $2. Mick Foley to be in AEW. Maybe if Tony Khan wants, I don't know, a Foley to make an appearance, show up on Dynamite, do something, sure. Signing a 3-year deal with an energy drink sponsorship, no. Definitely not for Foley. I think he's way past the time in his life where he wants to do that. Let's say hello to Spaz, fellow YouTuber. Thanks for the 10, bro. Hey, Greg and chat. Hope everyone's good. I'll have a Crown Jewel preview up tomorrow, but I got 2 episodes of NXT Rewind coming November 18th and December 30th. Thanks for always letting me hawk my stuff, Greg. Absolutely, Spaz. You are the best. Appreciate you being here. I also want to say hi to Ian Dunn and Nick Musser and the Juliet, some channel members chiming in while I was gum flapping. You know me. But we got to, since we're on the subject of AEW and stupid decisions they made, let's talk about Tony Khan's important announcement from last night on Dynamite. Now, again, I would have no issue with this announcement whatsoever if they didn't go out of their way to make a match graphic for this thing and make it seem or appear that possibly he could really be giving us some big information, a new signing, a new pay-per-view. They announced that World's End pay-per-view, so maybe some information about that. We've all been waiting for the streaming deal, but like I said, I think when a new TV deal or streaming deal is signed, it's probably going to be a Warner Brothers Discovery press release type of thing, not something that's announced on Dynamite or Collision. So it wasn't that. And what Tony Khan went on to announce, it was a backstage thing, so he didn't come out to the ring. He had Nigel with him. And basically all he announced, this big important announcement that he had to tell the AEW fans it was going to affect them worldwide, he said, was that next year's AEW All In at Wembley Stadium in London, it's going to be August 25th, 2024, I believe is the date on that. The tickets for that show are going to go on sale on December 1st. And he talked about the holiday season. You know, the holidays are here and my parents' tree has been up since January. Just what the fuck? And then he just says that All In set the record for most tickets sold in the history of pro wrestling last year. So we want to do it again. You can get your early shot at the tickets on December 1st. That was his big announcement. The way this man tweets like a maniac, especially when he gets hot or angry or frustrated or whatever, he's a tweeting madman. He tweets during Dynamite, he tweets after Dynamite, before his shows, after shows, middle of the night, morning. This dude's tweeting shit all the time, promoting his company and whatnot. Why not tweet this? Why not tweet it before Dynamite? Or why not? And then they can just reiterate his tweet. And then they can just throw a graphic of the tweet up on the screen. And Excalibur can, tell us in his Excalibur way how we can get our tickets, where we call, when they go on sale, that type of thing. But they promoted this as part of the show. All these other matches and Tony Khan's announcement, this was not something they should have even mentioned ahead of time. Maybe briefly. Tony Khan also has an announcement later tonight, but not like, oh, tune in, you're not going to want to miss this. So that is super lame. I saw a couple of people mention Boy Who Cried Wolf. It's pretty accurate, I guess, metaphor for that because, or similarity or comparison, because it feels like this was just for ratings. I mean, they had a pretty shit rating last week. They did bounce back here. By the way, Dynamite last night received 830,000. So they're back up to normal numbers there. But last week they dipped below 7. But of course, now there's a lot of sports affecting WWE and AEW. Raw pulled in a 1.3, so football, World Series, all of that, and NBA now starting is having an effect on both companies. So it's not making excuses. WWE and AEW are both suffering from this. And I think that's all last week was. Really, it was just sports. No big deal. But, if I think for them to be able to bounce back up to normal numbers here, if this is what they have to resort to, trick a bunch, because they didn't let you know when this was going to be said. They didn't say beginning of the show, middle of the show, after the show, or end of the show, whatever. They just kind of cut to it. So I guess their thought process was a lot of fans were going to tune in to see what Tony Khan was going to say. I had to work last night and I tweeted you guys, any word on that Tony Khan announcement yet? And you guys were like, oh, Greg, you're going to be so disappointed. And all it was just to announce the ticket sales. Now I get Tony Khan wants to get ahead of everything on All In, because as I said this year, before this year's All In, I said this several times leading up to the show. If you guys remember, I said that whatever number they draw, whatever the final number is, everybody fucking debated and discoursed the hell out of the turnstiles and what the reported and what was announced and Dave and I hate him and Sean Ross Sapp and they're lying and all that shit. Whatever the fucking number was, I don't care. Whatever the number was, in my mind, that was going to be the highest AEW ever draws. I just couldn't, because they was already pulling in crazy numbers like those tickets. You were tracking them, seeing how many they were selling, you're like, holy shit. There's going to be minimum 70,000 people there. That's fucking incredible. It's more than I thought they could ever draw, and that building looked pretty damn full. And I just can't imagine them packing it out any more than that. So I feel like they're not going to hit that number again. They might come close to it, but they might fall 5 or 10,000 short. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be really hard to get over that 80,000 fan mark. And many people debate that they didn't even get there this time. So Tony Khan probably wants to outdo last year's show. Maybe that would signify being a new beginning for AEW, because that show, everything attached to it, CM Punk and all of that. And I said last year, I said this year, I said during All In, I said this should have been the show that should have been if Punk never would have came back. This should have been the final part of the healing process. to put that fully behind us, and we are now moving into the future. Look at what this company just drew, all of these fans, and instead it was just mired in controversy. And so maybe this time around, next year, that show can be another kind of, big moment in the company that kind of signifies moving forward or putting things behind you or a cleansing or getting closure on things like that. So Tony wants to get ahead of that and wants to try to sell as many tickets as possible all year. That's great. But Tony, I got better advice for you. Make sure that by the time we get to August, you have things on that card that 80,000 people want to see. He's trying to get a lot of those early ticket sales up front, but you still have to build a card. So some of these booking issues you're having right now, some of these questionable decisions that you're making, try, if you can, injury, barring any injuries or whatever, that you book and try to make a big, mega main event for that show. A match that everybody is interested. Cole and MJF did great last year, don't get me wrong. But I think you need to book an even bigger main event. It doesn't have to be against two guys that have never wrestled or anything like that. Just maybe make the stakes really big. Maybe MJF's contract is coming up, loser leaves town match or something like that next year. Who knows? Maybe that's where Drew McIntyre wins the championship. If he leaves WWE, goes to AEW, wins the title, they give him the moment that he was never able to get at WrestleMania 36 or 36. So maybe they do something like that, but I think the announcement was lame. I think the announcement was a massive disappointment. And I think it was one of those things where normal people like myself just roll your eyes. I chuckled at it. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Deranged people with a boat oar up their ass over everything that Tony Khan says and does, they were foaming at the mouth with rage. I'm like, no, chill. The announcement was stupid. Don't get me wrong. The announcement was lame as hell. But do we need to foam at the mouth over it? Is that necessary? You're going to claim Tony Khan's the one with issues when you're going to act like that? Look in the mirror, bro. So I kind of laughed that there's kind of two Twitters. There's the deranged people that are just fucking mad all the time, and there are normal people like myself. When they see Tony Khan do something stupid, we call him out like a normal person. We don't say, this guy is the worst person to ever live. He should be dead. And this is coming from fans who are old enough to remember Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman's behavior when they ran wrestling companies. And they're going to act like Tony Khan's the worst thing they ever saw. Fuck you, you idiots. Ridiculous. But normal people who are not completely unhappy in their lives can look at a situation like that and say, Tony, that was a letdown. And stop doing that, because you're going to alienate fans, and you're going to alienate the wrong fans, because that's twice now. I mean, last night, even the biggest AEW supporters were kind of like, it's just a pay-per-view, that's all. And then today, Ric Flair signing. The AEW hardcores, we don't want him. So when you're doing things, when you're making decisions that is potentially alienating your strongest parts of your fan base, that's not good. So by the time AEW gets to All In next year, they need to be running hot, because they're running a little bit cold right now. Even Adam Copeland, who I'm marked out for when he showed up in AEW, he's just another guy. 1 month removed from his debut. Feels like just another guy. And that's something I think they need to work on, whether it be telling better stories, which I do like the MJF story. I'm liking that. And I have to give AEW props for taking the MJF and Adam Cole situation, Adam Cole getting hurt, fucking up all their plans, and still managing to make this interesting. Like, it hasn't felt like the wheels have fallen off. I loved Wardlow jacking up MJF last night. Didn't you? I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. MJF has got a good story right now because everybody's trying to kill him, and he has no friends, and he knows it. So I like all of that. So they've got some stories. It looks like they might be trying to start something with the Elite. Cracks in the foundation there. So it's not like they have no stories, but they need to have better ones, and they need to have stories that make you care and that are followed through with. Because right now, it's nice to get great matches. I love a good wrestling match between two guys who are just awesome. You put them together, that's fine. I don't even mind if Tony Khan shows have multiple of those matches per night, but balance it out with a fair amount of stories as well. And I think that next year, by the time we get to All In, they better be running real hot storylines, hot angles on TV, Dynamite doing well, fan enthusiasm is up, because otherwise you're going to be booking another one of these shows and just sticking 70,000 people in an arena just to put them there. They're not coming to see any sort of, anything that AEW wouldn't normally give you in a 5,000 seat arena. So if you're going to put a 70,000 people in an arena, you got to do more than just have a nice set and pyro and shit. You got to have matches that people want to see, matches that advance storylines, matches with big stakes, combined with dream matches and, everything else. That's how you sell your tickets. So you got them on sale early. Good for you. But you still have to present a card that will make these fans say, we want to come, because Tony Khan wants to do this every year, right? If he wants to make Wembley an annual thing, which I think might be pushing it, semi-annual might be better. If he really wants to make Wembley an annual thing, you better make sure Wembley has a kick-ass show every time it's in there. That's a hell of a lot of pressure to make sure these fans in these numbers turn out, to where by the time we get to All In 5, you don't have 30,000 people in Wembley. You want to keep them full for all of these. And the way to do that is to give the fans matches and storylines and angles that they're interested in. So that's more important than just announcing an extremely early on sale date. So that was a total letdown last night from Tony Khan. Let's talk about some more wrestling news before we run through the Dynamite results real quick, and then we get into Crown Jewel. We have some news on Kairi Sane. Kairi Sane is expected back in WWE at any time. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, but WrestleVotes tweeted out today, and I quote, "After what feels like months of speculation, I'm told Kairi Sane has reappeared on the internal talent roster. Her return to the company is imminent." So Kairi Sane should be back at any time. I think it's possible she shows up in that Io Sky and Bianca Belair match at Crown Jewel, or if maybe they don't want to send her there and run the risk of her being spotted and her return being leaked, then they do it here in the States. I don't know. Maybe she just appears on SmackDown. But if she does, I don't know if she'd be an opponent for Io Sky, probably, or if she would join them. But I think Kairi Sane, when she comes back, she's a babyface. And I think the fans are going to want that babyface reaction from her. We will see. But really happy to hear that it sounds like if we don't see Kairi Sane at Crown Jewel, we'll probably see her at the next TVs. Let's hope. We've got an update on Eric, too. Eric of the Viking Raiders. He underwent successful C6 and C7 neck fusion surgery. No timetable whatsoever on his return. That's a bummer. Hopefully everything goes well there. This is a surgery that a lot of other wrestlers have had done. It's usually about a year out or something like that, a year out of the ring, which explains, I had no idea that Eric was injured in this way. I just knew he was injured and off TV. I didn't know it was neck. So that sucks. Best of luck to him. And I guess that explains why they're really trying to push Ivar as a single star, because it's not going to be just a temporary absence for Eric. He's going to be gone for a while. So Ivar's got to do something. They're trying to push him as a single star now. That's good. And then maybe when Eric comes back, maybe they feud. Who knows? Got to talk a little bit about the Vladimir Superfan documentary that was finally released on Peacock and the WWE Network last week. This was done 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was when they filmed this, 3, I think. And it was shelved for whatever reason. Never saw the light of day. No explanation as to why. And then we have just been waiting for them to release this. And then some fan was searching around the WWE Network a few nights ago and said, oh, there it is. And it started making the rounds that it was up. And then about 3 or 4 hours later, it appeared on Peacock as well. So that is now up. Elizabeth and I got a chance to watch it on Monday. And yeah, that was a little deeper than I was expecting it to be. If we learned anything about Vladimir, it's that he really, really loves his mother. And that was an unfortunate situation that happened to her. She was 92, very, very old in 2020. She fell, she got hurt, and they had to send her to a nursing home, for recovery, which is the worst possible place you want to be in 2020 when the pandemic first hits. And unfortunately, she died of COVID. And now she was 92. She still got to live to be 92, but likely he would have had a little bit more time with her had she not fallen, gotten hurt, and got COVID in the nursing home. And it hit him hard. And I mean hard. Multiple suicide attempts. He said 3 times, I think. Tried taking a bunch of pills and, did a couple of other things to, try to end his sadness and his pain. But he says he's doing better. He's had therapy and he's worked through a lot and he seems to be in a pretty good place. But they did highlight his life. And of course, if you watch WWF, especially those Madison Square Garden shows and New York shows and pretty much any pay-per-view or major TV throughout the late 80s, from about 86 all the way up until 2000 sometime, you would see Vlad in or around the ringside area doing something. And they joked about how he was, it was always rumored that he was Vince McMahon's personal trainer, which I thought that was ridiculous. I never would have thought he was Vince McMahon's personal trainer. He wouldn't be coming in and out of the building with the humanoids. They were like, oh, he's Vince's trainer, and then he goes out and sits and watches the matches. Well, then if that was the case, he'd leave and go to the backstage area. He wouldn't walk in and out with his ticket to the, and everybody sees him around and, he's been seen in public. I sat next to him at King of the Ring back in 1999. So he comes and goes like everybody else does. So that was kind of a weird rumor, but I always assumed that he was related to somebody. I'm like, he must be somebody's kid or something because he's always there. But basically it was just him and his friends being really, really dedicated. That guy, Charlie, with the black hair, same thing. They did this forever. They got, early orders for tickets and mailed off for them. I got my WrestleMania 15 tickets that way. I mailed off for them. They arrived in the mail to me. And back then, in those days, that's just how you had to do things. And they were really, really on top of it to make sure they always got those ringside spots. And then when people at the ticket box office would get to know them and hold their seats for them and save blocks of seats for them. So they got really lucky, but it took work. It took a lot of work and dedication. This shit wasn't just handed to them. And I think a lot of fans were jealous of these guys. Oh, they get all these great seats. No, they work for it, man. And I used to have to do that too. All the Raws and SmackDowns and Attitude Era shows I went to back in the day were phone orders. Ticketmaster, calling, waiting in the queue, getting in line, getting the best possible seat you could get. Now I don't even bother with that. I just go to a third-party site, and pay the gouged prices, but at least I get to pick and choose where I sit now. I just go to StubHub. That seat looks good. Let's just do it that way. I don't want to just get whatever they give me, So that's the way it used to have to be back then. So they were all very, very lucky. They followed Vladimir around New York City a little bit. We got to see inside of his what appeared to be very tiny home where he had unbelievable memorabilia. I mean, if this guy ever wanted, he's old now. I think he's been diagnosed with Parkinson's as well, which is very sad. But if he ever wants to sell everything off, he's got some money there. That WWE Treasure show should come talk to him. He's got a Hogan shirt with blood on it and stuff. Like, he's got all sorts of crap that he's caught or was given throughout his years of going to shows. They showed a lot of footage of the wrestlers acknowledging who he was, giving him a hug, calling him out by name. Very good documentary. It's only 37 minutes long, but I've been waiting 3 years for this. Like, I really have always been interested in his story because he really is synonymous with those days in WWE. When I think back to my favorite pay-per-views, I see him in my head, sitting out there at ringside and stuff. So glad that was finally able to be released. It's worth the watch. If you haven't seen it, go on to Peacock and check out the Vladimir documentary. What I want to get into now is last night's Dynamite real quick. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it because I feel like it was a mediocre Dynamite. But like I said, 830,000, back to normal numbers for them in the ratings. This show, the big story on the show was MJF looking for his tag team partners. He's got the big 8-man tag in the main event against Bullet Club Gold, and he's got all night long to find a partner. So it starts off with him in the back with Renee Paquette. He says he's got a list of the entire roster and he's going to find 3 guys that aren't complete assholes. And then Adam Cole comes up on the video chat there. They start talking and Adam congratulates him on being the longest running now AEW champion of all time. That's very cool. And MJF kind of cuts it short because he's like, yo, I got to go. Sorry to cut this short, but I need to go work on finding my tag team partners. And he leaves. The Kingdom then rolls in and Roddy is like, Adam, I would never walk away in the middle of a conversation. What a dick bag or whatever. And you can't convince me that he's not the devil. And then Adam Cole just doesn't want to hear it and shuts off the video chat. And when he does that, an image of the man in the devil mask appears and he kind of does the head tilting thing. So still no more clues as to who's going to be the devil. As I mentioned earlier, I do not think it would be a good idea to make it Jack Perry. I think that would turn off a lot of fans because he's got X-Pac go away heat right now, and making him the devil would be the wrong kind of heat. So I vote no on that. I still think it's very possible it's going to wind up being Adam Cole at the end of the day. Could it be CM Punk? That would be the best. Could it be MJF? Maybe. We don't know yet, but they are continuing this angle, and I do like that. I love whodunits. So I am excited to see who's under the mask. Usually throughout history, whoever the reveal turns out to be has often been a letdown. Higher power, Ric Flair being the Scorpion or whatever, and a few other, excuse me, few other instances like that. So later on, we see MJF go to the locker room of Kenny Omega to maybe talk to him. Chris Jericho answers the door. So him and Kenny are in there. They got a tag match, I guess, later, or they already had their match. Jericho slams the door in MJF's face, so that's a no-go. And then as MJF's walking away, Wardlow grabs him, jacks him up against the wall, chokes him, and says, "You took everything from me, so I'm going to take everything from you when you least expect it." And Maxwell looks legitimately scared. He's got some fear in his eyes. So he jacks up Max, tells him he's going to take everything from him, and walks away. So Wardlow could play into whenever Max does lose the title. It could be Wardlow the one that costs him that title, unless Wardlow means he's going to take everything from him, like, "I'm going to take your belt from you." So Wardlow's still got to get that title shot at some point. That could be a Winter's or World's End match at the end of the year. You never know, but I really like that. Later, MJF goes to the locker room of Samoa Joe, but then doesn't even bother knocking. He goes right to the next locker room, which is Darby Allin, and he sees Darby's little nameplate or name sign on his door, takes the Darby Allin sign, writes "emo bitch" on it, and puts it back and walks away. So he doesn't want to be Joe's partner or Darby Allin's partner. That was hilarious and loved that. And then right when he turns around, the Acclaimed is there with signs and all of that. They really want him. Ultimately, it would wind up being the Acclaimed teaming up with him in the main event to take on all the members of Bullet Club Gold, Jay White and Juice and the Ass Boys. And the story here was pretty good in the main event. I liked it. By the way, happy birthday to Billy Gunn, who turned 60, 6-0 yesterday. And the fact that MJF worked all night to find a team, Acclaimed has been wanting him the whole time, and he's kind of been resistant to them, finally agreeing to team with them here. But again, it's not really a cohesive team. And they do the finish where the champion gets pinned. We see Jay White pinning MJF after a Blade Runner, after MJF double kangaroo kicks both Ass Boys out of the way or out of the ring. He turns around, gets hit with a Blade Runner, and Jay White pins him 1, 2, 3. I am fine with this. I'm totally fine with this. I know you're going to hear it because wrestling fans are just Pavlov's dog. They're just programmed to say, don't beat the champion. I don't like beating champions. There was a time in WWE where it felt like they were doing it 2 or 3 times on every show. You know, I'm not a fan of beating champions regularly, but I'm okay with pinning a champion in order to get someone over or protect someone. Now, this now gives the fans reason to believe that Jay White can actually win and beat MJF at Full Gear because he beat him and pinned him right in the middle of the ring, and he beat him after one of his finisher. So now this puts over the finish and it puts over the wrestler. So now when MJF inevitably kicks out of the Blade Runner at Full Gear, it's going to be a big deal because he didn't kick out of it before. So I think MJF still is an absolute lock to retain the title against Jay White. Whenever you see these situations where somebody steals a belt, like, can you really see Jay White stealing MJF's belt, carrying it around for over a month, hitting his finisher on MJF and beating him in the middle of the ring, and then also going into Full Gear and beating him for the title? Unless MJF has told Tony Khan, "I'm going to WWE," there's no real universe where that generally happens. So MJF is going to beat Jay White. He's going to get his Triple B back. All of that is going to happen at Full Gear. And I'm okay with how they set this up because it does put Jay White over. Now, AEW does not do this very often. It's not a big habit for them to pin champions. This is much more a WWE thing. So, you know, much like last week when I was talking about the MJF Kenny match, and I was saying, look, there are times to, use the argument, oh, they didn't build this enough. There are times when that applies. It just didn't apply here in that situation. Same goes here. I don't really like the pinning champions thing, or I don't like champions being pinned unless it's for a reason. And this was a decent enough reason for me, and I had no issue with it, especially with that, MJF's going to win out in this in the end. He's been having incredible matches. That match he had on Saturday with Kenny was ridiculous. He's going to be pulling double duty at Full Gear. He may or may drop his Ring of Honor tags, but in terms of the match with Jay White, he's going to beat Jay White at Full Gear, and I think he's going to beat him fucking clean in the middle, if you ask me. Also on Dynamite last night, we saw Orange Cassidy defeat Claudio in a great international title match. Moxley reappeared after this, came down, beat down Orange Cassidy and security, and then in the back announced that he wants a match with Orange Cassidy at Full Gear for the title, so we're running that one back. We also saw Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony defeat the Elite to win the Ring of Honor Trios titles. We already had the acclaimed AEW Trios champions in the main event. I cannot stand all of these championship belts in AEW. It's fine when Ring of Honor titles appear on the show every now and then, but you literally had two. They've had been doing this for the past few weeks. We've seen both sets of Trios championships on TV, and that's just way too much. So I'm happy that the Elite lost these belts. The reason they lost is because Swerve came out during the match on the mic and said, "This is Swerve's house. The last week I was in your house." And Page just fucking loses it, and he runs right to the back to chase down Swerve Strickland, leaving the Bucks by themselves to contend with the rest of the moguls there, and they got beat. Nick Jackson got absolutely mauled and pinned, and after the match, Matt Jackson threw a little bit of a temper tantrum backstage. We saw Jericho and Kenny and the Elite kind of talking, and there's some problems potentially brewing there. So I'm glad that the titles are off of the Elite now, and maybe they can stay in just Ring of Honor where they belong, and we might get some storyline within the Elite here. So maybe that's something that they are improving upon with their stories, because the Elite have been doing generally the same thing ever since, the whole CM Punk fiasco. So maybe it's time to, break them up again, feature Kenny more as a singles while he's still got it. I don't know. After that, we got Adam Copeland in the ring for an interview with Tony Schiavone. He took the opportunity and time to give Tony Schiavone his flowers there and gave him some props. And that's when Christian and Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus come out, and Christian tells Adam to either back down or he's going to snap his neck. That seemed to really piss off Adam Copeland a lot. The heels rush in. They attack Adam. They lay his head on the chair for the concerto. Sting and Darby Allin come down to make the save. And they start brawling. Adam recovers. Christian is standing up in the ring, and now Adam, he's got that look in his eyes. Christian turns around, boom, eats a spear. I thought he was going to powder out. I did not think we would get physicality between these two, but I think it was the snap the neckline that finally made Edge say, okay, enough's enough. You're on, and he agrees to be Sting and Darby's partner at Full Gear, which is what we knew was going to happen, but they probably had 1 or 2 more weeks to actually make it official if they wanted to, but they went ahead and did it now with Adam spearing Christian. So that is now set for Full Gear. Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega defeated 2.0 in a tag team match, and this was when we were going to get the reveal of who Jericho was talking about last week when he said he had a big friend that was going to help him out. The Callis family comes out to the stage, and that's when Jericho announces Paul White. And I think there's going to be a match at Full Gear. Is it going to be Paul White and Kota Ibushi and Jericho? Is that what they're doing against the Callis family? Is that what's happening? Or is it going to be 4? It's going to be an 8-man. It's going to be Jericho, Kenny, Ibushi, and Show. Is that what's happening? I'm not even sure. I forgot what Jericho said. But Paul White did not look good. He's had some multiple hip operations, and you could tell something was lopsided with him. And he could barely move. He just stood on the stage. I think Kyle Fletcher came to him and he just punched him. So I don't know, man. I don't know if Big Show should really be out there doing anything, but if this is a multi-man tag, you can kind of stand there, not do a whole lot, punch a guy or whatnot, but he seems unbalanced. And I just hope he's okay. I'm sure doctors have got to check him out and you got to feel good. And I know he's wanted to get back in the ring, but he looked physically off to me. I don't know what that is. It's just hip issues. We had Hikaru Shida defeating Willow Nightingale after Willow lost a number one contenders match just days ago. And she gets a title shot anyway against Shida. Shida retains. Toni Storm comes out with Luther. Luther's now like her bodyguard or her handler or something like that. And he's got a little shoe on a plate. He tries to give it to Hikaru Shida. She kicks the shoe, and Tony Khan is up on the stage, and Hikaru runs up and blasts her with a knee. That was pretty good. And then back in the ring with Willow, Julia Hart appears in front of Willow, and there's something going on there because Willow's been misted and Sky Blue's been misted. Sky Blue then comes out, and it looks like she's going to join Julia to turn on Willow, but then she spits blue mist in Julia's face. Now, Julia's all fucked up, and it's maybe they're even breaking her off from House of Black. I don't know. I liked her with Brody King. I thought that was those two look good together, but she's doing her own thing here. So this is just tying into more of that. I guess maybe next week Willow's going to come spit some shit in somebody's face. We will see. And then in the main event, like I talked about, Bullet Club Gold defeated MJF and the Acclaimed when Jay White pinned MJF. I said earlier I had no problem with that. After the match, the heels continue the beatdown, and Max Caster winds up taking a bullet for MJF, which Max appreciates, and as a token of his appreciation, he agrees to do the scissor for the fans at the end. And at least the fans got sent home happy, even though their babyface world champion got pinned right in the middle. So here's what we got for Full Gear. It's going to be MJF either by himself or with a partner facing the Guns for the Ring of Honor tag team titles. That's hopefully going to be at the 0 hour or the buy-in. We have Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland. We got that big Jericho and Paul White and Callis family match, most likely. Adam, Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allin are going to take on Christian, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne. We've got Hikaru Shida versus Toni Storm, Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley, and MJF versus Jay White. I think that's what we have basically so far for Full Gear. And that just leaves us with Crown Jewel. We got to predict it, man. 8 matches on the card, including the kickoff. We're going to predict that here in just 1 second. Let me cruise to the chat because I think I owe at least a couple of more shout outs. I want to say hello to Michael Cuomo, 14-month member. Thank you for that, dude. Tony Khan should be more concerned about the NBA dealing that TNT and TBS is working out. TK won't be getting the money he's hoping for from them. The NBA deal is weird. I don't know what the latest is on it, but I also know that NBC Universal is also trying to make a play for NBA content as well. Now, I don't know if some news has come out today that I haven't heard or seen or know about, but I did hear about NBC Universal having interest, and I kind of thought that was cool. I would love for the NBA to go back to NBC because I love that 90s theme song. Tony Khan was actually using it briefly on Rampage for a while. You know, dun, 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 just childhood memories. Like, I would love for the NBA to go back and have games on NBC and them to resurrect that old theme song written by John Tesh, actually, from Entertainment Tonight. But if they did that and NBA left TNT, that would free them up in the opposite way. Maybe they'd have more money to spend, like they would give them more motivation to retain AEW. Now, I think either way, AEW staying there, I think it's just a matter of how much they're going to get, because we've heard nothing but positive things coming out of Warner Brothers. No matter how bad the haters are complaining and saying AEW is in the mud, the network they're on doesn't think so. So everything that they've said, or whenever the relationship with AEW has been discussed, it's been positive on both ends. AEW likes them. Warner Brothers likes AEW. It's a win-win. It's mutual. They like each other. AEW is going to stick around there. They're not going anywhere. But maybe in terms of how much money they have to play with, it could be more or less depending on what the NBA does. But yeah, the NBA deal is going to be interesting where it lands after it's been on TNT for how many years now? How many years has NBA been on TNT? A long time. Zane G, I want to thank you for that super chat, even though you retracted your message, but it's always great to see you here. You are my friend, and we've hung out before, me and Zane. He's the best. Have you seen Superfan smiles at the ringside? Oh no, Lula Twins. I'm not sure if I know who that is. I agree. Swerve is a great heel. He's the best. Loved him. And I said last week, I said, Adam Page better be fucking pissed based on what Swerve did. And he wasn't mad enough for me. You know, to me, they should have had camera footage of Hangman losing his mind backstage. Like, here's what happened when Hangman arrived at the show. As soon as he gets out of his rental car with a little wheelie suitcase, comes down there, his cowboy belt and hat and all that. And you should be like, the first thing he should say to anybody when he gets to the building, have you seen Swerve Strickland? Where is he? And he should just be stark raving mad all fucking day. He doesn't worry about eating and catering, saying hi to his friends, anything like that. He's got to beat the fuck out of the guy that invaded his home with his family in it last week. But no, he just came out to his match like normal, and it took Swerve coming out to the stage to piss him off and run after him. But you would think in reality, Paige would be looking for him earlier on in the day. That's just me. But despite all that, I love this program. It's another story that they are telling. This is a good angle. Paige and Swerve is good. MJF stuff is good. Some of the stuff they're doing is good, but just not all of it. Crown Jewel, live from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, this coming Saturday. I got to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning if I want to watch this bullshit here in California, but I'm going to do it. We'll start at the bottom of the card. Not likely, but advertised for the kickoff is Sami Zayn taking on JD McDonough. Guys, is this one hard to predict? I don't even have to say who wins it because we know who's going to win it. We know. Mr. Sammy. Io Sky defending her women's championship against Bianca Belair. Like I said last week, I'm hoping that the whole point of this, because I think Bianca has a match tomorrow with Bayley, right, on SmackDown. Bianca returned after her time off. I'm hoping that this is them just fast-tracking her, wrapping up her business with Damage Control. So I'm not looking at this yet from a perspective of, oh, Bianca is the next Charlotte. She comes right back after some time off and is immediately given a title shot. Not necessarily. They might just be doing this to wrap up, to tie up that business and not leave it open. So Bianca has the match. She's unsuccessful for whatever reason. Maybe she wins DQ. Whatever happens, she doesn't walk off or leave with the belt. And if they do want to turn her heel in the future, I feel like you have to do this first before you turn her heel. Because if she came back as a heel, oh, I'm just a heel now. You're like, why? So at least now you bring her back. She's normal Bianca. She loses her title opportunity. Maybe something else happens, frustrates her. You start seeing a change in her. She's getting a little bit more mad. Then maybe something else happens that fucks her over. And now she's fed up and she goes to Bobby Lashley for help or goes to her husband for help. That's what I would like to see. But in order to get there, you have to start with this first. So if that is going to happen, this is all just hypothetical, but if that were to happen, and if that were to be the case, then I have no issue with this match. I have no issue with this match at all, provided Bianca Belair doesn't win the title. Bianca Belair is one of my favorite women in the company right now, but she's already had a couple of long runs, and I need an attitude and gimmick change out of her for me to stay interested. So I don't want to see Bianca just be same old Bianca again, especially when Io Sky has had a pretty damn decent little run here. So I'm going to predict Io Sky to retain. Plus, I think it would be cool if she's champion when Kairi Sane comes back to the company, whether they are opponents or allies, whatever they do there. Io Sky being champion when that happens would be preferable to Greg. Rhea Ripley's also defending her championship against Zoe Stark, Nia Jax, Raquel Rodriguez, and Shayna Baszler. If Nia Jax wins the championship, I will eat my computer chair. Like, no. 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 I can't. No. 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 Rhea Ripley's going to retain. Because I don't want to eat this chair. It's comfortable. Nia Jax wins, I'm going to have a problem. So Rhea Ripley, before I give myself a stroke here, Rhea Ripley should retain. Hopefully she will, and I'm predicting her too, because that's what I want to see happen. Logan Paul challenging Rey Mysterio for the U.S. title. I think Logan wins here. He hasn't, he lost to Roman. He's lost to Seth. If he's U.S. champion, my only concern is that now you have Roman and Logan being part-time champions, holding these belts hostage, not being on TV. If Logan is going to win the U.S. title, then I think he needs to be on television every single week until he drops it, whether that's a month from now or 3 months from now or WrestleMania. He needs to be on the show for the moment. Every week might be stretching. Like if he makes it to WrestleMania as U.S. champion, then he needs to be on 80% of the shows. between now and WrestleMania. You got to take a few off for some shit he does, fine. But for the most part, he needs to be on TV, and he needs to have some matches. A couple title defenses on TV wouldn't hurt either. But if this is intended to be a short run, then, you know, whatever, he can do it quickly. But I think LA Knight or Kevin Owens will be one of the two that beats him for that title if he is to win it. And maybe Santos Escobar has something to do with this. That split is happening soon. So I feel like Logan is going to win here. We're going to predict Logan Paul to become the new United States champion. Here's one I like. Cody Rhodes versus Damian Priest. Now, remember back at the last pay-per-view. What was it? What the fuck was it? Payback or something. And I said, Seth Rollins, the champion, has got a last man standing match against Nakamura. What is going to be Damian Priest's excuse for not cashing in his championship? If he's got a champion there in a last man standing match, why is he not going to cash in? Something's going to have to happen to him. Something's going to have to happen in that tag match, or they're going to have to create a reason why he wouldn't cash in. And they did. WWE recognized that too. We can't have Seth Rollins in a last man standing match and have Damian Priest back there eating a sandwich and catering. We have to have a reason that he can't cash in. So Rhea Ripley took his briefcase away. So considering that they went through the trouble on TV of having Damian Priest injure Cody, and the fire that was in Cody Rhodes on Monday night when he went straight to the ring and attacked Damian Priest and put him through 2 crossroads on the table, right? Or did he do that to him or JD? I think it was JD. But he went after Damian Priest, right? So Cody Rhodes is mad because Damian Priest injured him, and now he's out for revenge. So maybe after Cody Rhodes hits the crossroads on Damian Priest, maybe he goes and gets the chair, puts Damian Priest's arm in the chair, Pillman style, and stomps it and breaks his arm. Or something like that to prolong Priest cashing in. But if they don't do that, and Priest comes out of this match unscathed, and nothing else happens, Rhea Ripley doesn't take the briefcase away or anything like that, and Priest, even if he loses, he's okay in the loss. He walks off under his own power, and he seems fine. How is he not going to come out and cash in later? So I think how Cody and Damian go should be a big indicator. Now, it also depends on how these matches are scheduled. If Seth Rollins and McIntyre comes first, Priest could cash in healthy. So I almost feel like Cody and Priest has got to happen first. Whenever it happens, I think Cody's going to win because Priest can lose right now because he's the Money in the Bank holder. So he's going to be world champion soon. So losing here doesn't mean anything. So, and I think whatever they do with Priest, it needs to resolve itself before Roman and LA Knight. I can't see Priest coming down, unless they just want to tease it for fun, unless Priest runs down there during the Roman and LA Knight match or something like that. But I feel like all of the Priest stuff, whatever he's going to do, is going to be over and done with before Roman and LA Knight even get in the ring. So I feel like you could have Damian Priest cash in Saudi Arabia at Crown Jewel. That could happen. But if it doesn't, I think Cody needs to be the reason that it doesn't. Like Cody injures Damian and makes it impossible for him to cash in. That will be Cody's revenge. You know, you injured me and I got you back. I injured you too and I prevented you because you would have been able to cash in because maybe Seth and Drew, like I pitched on Monday, I think Seth Rollins is going to beat Drew McIntyre. So I'm predicting Seth Rollins to win right there because this is going to be a great program between these guys. And since you already know you're going to do a program, it doesn't necessarily have to be for the championship. I pitched on Monday Seth Rollins beating Drew McIntyre, and then Drew McIntyre realizing that another opportunity is gone. This is finally what causes him to snap. We've been on this like slow burn to a heel turn. He finally snaps out of frustration after the loss and just annihilates Seth Rollins. 3 claymores and through the table and the chair, the works. Just annihilate him. And then out comes Damian Priest to pick up the scraps, pin Seth Rollins, become the new champion, and then you can do the thing that we've seen before in other situations with title changes where the former champion now, his priority isn't winning the belt back anymore. His priority is fucking revenge. And Drew and Seth can have their program. And now you got a brand new world champion who needs a new opponent in Damian Priest. So it's like you got two birds with one stone. You put the belt on Damian Priest without having to start a Damian Priest and Seth Rollins program because he's already in his feud with McIntyre right now. You can still do that, having McIntyre be the one to cost him the title. So then if McIntyre leaves, you can just book the whole thing in a loser leaves town match at the Royal Rumble or something between these two. And then McIntyre goes to AEW. I don't know. But I feel like it could go one of two ways. Cody either prevents Damian Priest from cashing in, or McIntyre is the reason that Priest is the new champion. So I'm predicting that we're going to go another show without getting a cash in, even though I feel like a cash in is very possible. The fact that they've done that stuff with Cody's arm makes me think that's what they're going to use to prolong Priest's cash in. So it won't be here. And then Seth Rollins will beat Drew McIntyre and they will continue their program. That's what I think is going to happen, but there is the possibility of the cash in. John Cena versus Solo Sikoa. I got to go Cena. I think Cena's going to get that win. Last time he got a win was also in Saudi Arabia. And he's going to turn the math around, and maybe that'll be his nice little send-off because I believe Cena is going to be gone after this. So beating Solo and then leaving, I don't know how great that is, but Cena already did a job this year to Austin Theory at WrestleMania. It got him nowhere. Solo's pretty established right now. I don't know. I think I would put Cena over here. So I'm going to have Cena pick up the win over Solo Sikoa. And that leaves us with Roman Reigns versus LA Knight. And I talked about the last couple of weeks, we know Roman's walking out with the belt. So do you think it would be better? Which scenario do you think would be better for LA Knight? He either has a hard-fought loss where he loses, but he fights his ass off and earns the respect, even more respect from the audience, or does he win via disqualification? If Cena beats Solo, I don't know if Solo and Roman are both going to take L's. I think one's going to take a win. So even though I think LA Knight winning via disqualification is definitely possible, the only thing I know for sure is that Roman will leave as champion. I'm just not quite sure if he's going to do that with a disqualification loss or if he's going to do that with a win and interference. I said that they have an opportunity here to come up with something a little bit more creative than Solo coming in the ring, hitting the Samoan spike on LA Knight and Roman beating him. But that's been Roman's story. And I think if you want to continue to build fan frustration in Roman Reigns, where he continues to win like this and get the fans as mad at him as possible before WrestleMania 40, to where everybody in that crowd in Philly is salivating and waiting for Roman to get beat. Excuse me. Sorry. Scratchy throat. Then maybe that's what the plan is here, is just to continue that trend of getting the fans really anti-Roman to maximize Cody's pop at WrestleMania. But, just screwing LA Knight the typical way. This is LA Knight. This is a guy that has a lot of bubbling popularity here. So I would book this match in a way to protect him as best as possible. And if he has to lose due to interference and stuff, just be a little more creative with it, I guess. Jimmy Uso is going to be out there. We know that. Solo, I'm sure, will make an appearance. We might get an appearance from John Cena. Who knows? To come be a part of this. Maybe John Cena comes in and fucks up. Maybe he beats Solo Sikoa in the earlier match, but when he comes in the ring to try to help out, he ends up nailing LA Knight instead. Roman spears LA Knight and retains the championship. And then John Cena gets to leave, and LA Knight now kind of has to blame him on TV, and maybe that's your WrestleMania match next year, LA Knight and John Cena. Just a thought. So anything can happen, but at the end of the day, Roman is going to walk out with the championships, and I guess I'm going to predict him to also win the match. So there you go. There's my crown jewel predictions in a nutshell, just in time for me to bail out of here because I got to head to work. I would love it if you guys would hit that thumbs up button for me. Anybody who has not done that yet, thank you so much. Abu Sika, thank you for the $2. LA Knight wrestling like a Wands Wabu is beyond me. I don't know what that means. LA Knight, a lot of the top big stars, they're never really great in the ring. Rock, he was okay, but. Oh, you think Cena will be staying for the rest of the year? I hope he does. I hope he does. I just assumed they promoted him through the entire month of October, and that's over now. So if he was going to stick around. I think they would have told us that originally, but it might have to do with the strike too. And maybe we get more of Cena. If we do, I don't mind. If he stays around till the end of the year, he might as well just stay until WrestleMania, because now he's going to have to be back for that anyway, unless he sits this WrestleMania out and does not have a match. He might not. We will see. But anyway, I appreciate you guys being here today. Thank you so much. We will be live again on Saturday, about an hour or so after Crown Jewel goes off the air. We'll be up here for our review, so make sure you check back with us. And the link to that review is already up on the channel. I recommend saving it for later, because apparently YouTube is not sending out notifications right now. A lot of people have been complaining about that. Our numbers and audience have been down in the last few streams. So go over there, save the video, join us on Saturday, and we will talk about WWE Crown Jewel. Thank you so much for being here today. You guys are the best. Have a great rest of your night, and I will be catching you on Saturday. Peace.